She was quiet and loyal. The one who stayed when other people left have run. It was decades before Jessi Colter was drawn as the guardian angel next to the criminal, a preaching heart and a man who was set on taking down all the bridges. But now, at age 82, she's writing the story over again. Right now no one saw it coming. Jessi mumbled a remark that sent shock waves through her family. Something was left under the wood floors. I didn't tell anyone. The story she hasn't told anyone in over 40 years, love, pain, and one night over many years that made everything different is finally getting out. It's not about getting famous. It's not about songs. It's about what went on behind closed doors and when Jennings promised she would never do open up. For the first time ever, Jessi, what Colter said she would do will not be kept. The secret will be revealed at the end of this movie. What she carries could change everything we do. We thought we knew a lot about country music when the most famous couple. Before Jessi Colter became the woman who was tied to the lie about Waylon Jennings, she was just Miriam Johnson, daughter of a preacher from Phoenix and has a velvety voice lightning struck. She grew up on Church and Grit, and I play the piano in church, hope that the songs they sang would reach past the altar. Before Music City, before Juan, before she was her own person, not chaos. Also, for a moment, everyone saw her that way. She got to know Dwayne Eddy first. That Dwayne Eddy is the king of the twangy guitar. They got married young. She went on tour with him. I learned the hard way about the music business, until they finally got away. By the early in the 1970s, she took back her own name and putting out, "I'm Jessi Colter," with sound and idea that the country world couldn't not care. But the attention she was building for herself made the moment less bright. When Jennings came into her life, when was already brimming with charm, and this is not true. He had a magnetic, abused, loved, and totally out of in charge. Jessi knew about it. I saw the pills, the booze, and the short that rogue charm hides a bad temper. But she also saw the man below, the artist, the dreamer, and the broken boy acting like they can't be defeated. And she felt like she had to fix him. Their relationship didn't happen all at once. There was a storm. They fought, loved, split up and came back. He would go away. For days or even weeks. She would be alone. Not sure if he was with someone else or if this was the time he didn't please come back. Still, she stayed. Not because they are scared or weak, but because she thought, maybe too innocently, that she loved him more than he loved her demons. Jessi had her big break in 1975. I'm Not Lisa, a hit song about a woman being pushed around by someone else. It looked like real life because even as she felt like a star when everyone sang her name. Ghost in her own story. In the meantime, one was turning into the face of criminal country. And Jessi, even though she was talented, more and more as his wife and less as she is a star in her own right. Friends began seeing bruises, maybe mental ones more. Jessi said it wasn't true. Said he never put their hand on her, but there was one what happened in 1978 after a Houston show that's never been talked about in public until now. She keeps a diary and writes about it in script with a tilt. He looked at me through me. It seemed like I wasn't real and he wasn't real either. Not know me at all. What then took place, she says, is something she hid so deep that it almost disappeared. However, they didn't. It's still under the wood floors, and that's where our story begins. We'll be back soon. There were times one wouldn't sleep, and he wouldn't sleep at night. Talk. It wasn't just a habit to use cocaine. No longer. Someone evil was riding on his back, whispers in his bones and making it hard to see the line between being smart and going crazy. He would be pacing the room at 4 o'clock in the morning. With red eyes, going on and on about things that didn't make sense. People in the walls, songs that no one else could hear, covert government vans keeping up with the tour bus. He was coming apart, and she was the only one he is still being sewn back together. People saw a king who was rebelling in a country of God, walking on stages in leather shoes and shadow. But Jessi saw something else. She saw a man who was haunted by his past. Shame. He never really asked for fame. Because of the deaths of friends, the weight of acting like you're bigger than life every single night. When couldn't he didn't want to turn it off, which was even worse. 2. He made things worse because it was the pain is the only thing that is louder. 1981, everything broke. They were in a hotel outside of Memphis with its cheap, quiet, and out of the way of the press. He did what Jessi told him to do. To sit, eat, or just rest still long enough for the fog in his to lift the head. Instead, he turned on. It wasn't violent, but it was poisonous. He said things she'd never do again, things that didn't sound like him at all. Afterward, she wrote that it was like seeing the devil talk through the lips of someone you used to love. That she left the room at night and drove for hours, no place to go, and only the hum of the road and her heart hurting. When she got back the next morning, Wen was gone. There was no letter or bag. The bathroom mirror has a hole in it. And a small wooden box that was left on the bedside table. That time, she didn't open it. She 30 years without opening it. However, it changed everything when she finally did it. What was in that box and the message carved into the bottom of it will be found out later in this story. However, Jessi didn't leave after that. That was the no one ever got that part. Why did she leave? Why didn't she save herself? She now says that the truth is breaks my heart. I believed that if I left, he would come back. They would die. And if he died, it would be it's my fault. It wasn't her fault. She wasn't a hero. She was just a woman. Not giving up on the hope that love, even cut and sore, could still be enough to stop someone from the edge. She didn't know that, though. The edge looked more real than ever. And one day, it would go right through both of them. The early 1980s were filled with bright lights. Talk, signs, and late-night shows. Prayers Jessi never said she was telling. From the outside, they looked like country kings and queens. She was still by his side. Sighed at award shows, but she still smiled for still. The cameras hit the road when we got bookings. But on the tour bus, things happen inside the walls of their house. Were falling apart. The man she was seeing married, the man who wrote her a love letter writing in the edges of his song lyrics sheets, was slowly going away under the weight of drug abuse and fear. Jessi wasn't just going through her own pain. She also had wants on her. Whenever he passed out backstage, she was the one putting his head down. Everywhere he went wasn't there, she was on the phone getting him back. She wrote in a notebook. Hidden from everyone where she logged in the places he did not show up, the names he used when he checked in, his bosses heard the excuses he gave them. Page after page. It wasn't really a book. A man's map who didn't want to be found. Then there was the hospital. Visits, but no one told anyone about the deaths. The jobs that were called off because of being tired. In one of the scariest in notes she wrote, Jessi wrote, he stopped seeing me at night. He'd call me sweetheart like I was nothing. He forgot about another fan meeting. Slowly, her heart was breaking. Move over and over, but there was no one she knew how to tell, the story of one. It was too big and holy for Jennings. It was a sin to speak out against it. The baby grand came next. Sent to their house without a note. Not a card, just a worn-out writing cut into the bottom of the lid of the one. Jessi didn't know who sent who stayed. Juan never admitted it, but she did. Began playing again at night in a quiet way. Gospel songs she hadn't sung in years. I heard songs, lullabies, and something slowly. That started to live again in her. The piano would be her safe place, the one spot where she could still feel like Jessi and not just the dark figure next to a legend. But the more she looked into it, the keys, the more memories came flooding back. And one in particular was locked away since the beginning of their marriage. It started to claw its way forward. Something to do in Tucson at night. With a letter that made her burn with a "he told me a secret that would destroy everything." If it ever got out, she thought she had. I forgot about it, but the piano remembered, and when that tune came back, the truth began to hum just below her one touch. All these years, Jessi Colter still can't. Jessi went to sleep with the lights off. Learned to live with two different truths. One where she laughed and sang for the cams, and another place where the spooked every quiet spot in her house. In the late 1980s, one had already begun. His getting clean is a slow process. The wounds he left behind didn't get better just since the drugs were no longer there. Being sober made some things worse. Woke up. He remembered more, and so she did. He sat next to her as she played the piano softly, singing a religious song. When he got there, she stopped her hands in the middle of the chord. He didn't say anything for a long time. Asked in a whisper, "Remember Tucson?" Jessi was shocked. They hadn't talked about that night in more than 2 decades. She slowly nodded. I should not have burned you," he said. It wasn't clear what it was, Jessi, but she wrote in her book that night, "I stopped singing that for a reason, What I saw. Something I did." What that line means has never been said. But people close to her say that's not true. Her say that she avoided for years Arizona the whole time. Friends who brought it up and say she'd be quiet and far away, just like her. The mind had left the room. Before Jessi cleaned out a room, he found something she thought was gone for good. A cassette tape with only one letter on it named the gravestone. It was in Juan's handwriting, and the voice on the tape made the hands shake. It was his, but he wasn't singing, admitting, ranting, crying, or talking about a move he made in 1974 that buried more than just a name. Was never meant to be heard, but Jessi did. She put it away in a safe place and kept it. Deposit box and the wooden box from the hotel, and a picture of one being outside of a church with a man she had never seen that before. A picture with a name written in old ink. "Don't forget what we did years ago." Jessi tried to put it all together later. She got a private inspector, out of sight and out of mind, to find the name and the church. Found led her to a graveyard in the desert, an unknown story, and a courtroom that is locked 1970s paper that had been buried under a fake name and government rules. Showed what was in those papers, not even to her, not to the press, but in one conversation, her best friends. When asked what the hardest thing she ever had, she said, "There's a dress that why I sing to God more than other people right now. Some things that only heaven can do, forgive," and then the tune of things got darker and quieter in their marriage. Tone. Because of what took place in Tucson, but it never really stayed there. It went with them and got into every note. She sang every song she wrote, and she kept quiet longer than it took to say something. The deal should have been good for a long time. Jessi Colter had hid himself in a quieter life. In public, she looked calm, polite in talks, and gentle on stage. She always picked her words with the poise of someone who owned too many lies for too long. But behind, with her soft smiles and church music, it had become cooler in the world. When was gone, he took the only person who knew with him. The whole weight of what they buried together. When he died in 2002, it hit her like a slow-moving train. Not with a scream, but there was such a deep quiet that she couldn't play the piano for almost a year. Their whole house, every song sounded like a ghost. Lots of people sent flowers and wrote, praised her and called her the last, but this is a woman from the time of the outlaws. They had no idea what she'd really lost, because Waylon didn't have any friends when he died. Just bring memories with him. Agreement, a secret, and Jessi, for the I was by myself for the first time in decades with it came to her in the mail a year later. In the mail without a return address. Inside was a copy of the picture she had kept secret, the one of Juan and the stranger outside the church, but the copy was different from the first one in a way. A second person in the background, blurry, but it was definitely Jessi herself. One written line below it. The truth stays dead for a while. She didn't call the police to tell her son. Police. Instead, she packed a gun in silence. Bag and didn't show up for 3 days. No one knows where she went or when she got back. She burned her diaries. Of them. Decades of pages burned to ash close to the fire pit in the backyard. She stood there in silence over the smoke for hours. After that, Jessi did something. She started telling stories in the form of tales. Telling hazy tales about God's kindness, how to forgive and what it costs to be quiet. In talks, when asked about wants in the bad times, she'd change her mind. I'm at peace with God, she'd say. That counts. But the eyes showed a different story. Eyes that had seen plenty, knew too much, and were there to wait for someone or something. Saw that she started locking her piano room. She didn't open her mail for weeks, and once during a songwriting she quickly ended the round in Nashville her set after a person in the crowd called out, "Play something from Tombstone." Her hands were shaking the whole time. Stage. It looked like the past wasn't I'm done with her. And as whispers whirled around an unfinished song one they had written, one that talked about the church, the letter, and the offer, Jessi was left with the last part of a story that was never told meant to fall apart. And what she did that thread would soon shock everyone. The whispers got louder as each year that goes by. It began in silence. Talks between old session members, singers and veterans of the road crew. Rumors about a song one had written but never put out, a last track that had only been heard by a few people. Some people said it was some people thought it was a confession. Danger, but everyone agreed on one thing. He had the tape, and here's the story. Went. That one recorded it late one night in 1989 by himself in his home studio. It's just him and a guitar. It was never on a record, and the RCA never kept track of the master reel. Jessi hid it in a box that wouldn't catch fire. Away from people in the business world. Engineer said he heard it, and he said it made him feel cold for weeks. He whispered that the songs talked about the lie of the minister, a grave with no name, and a woman who knew too much. The name of the woman was Jessi. In 2010, an blogger put up a rough audio clip, 20 seconds of what seemed to be Juan's voice singing a tune that didn't go with it any recording that was known. The job was taken down within hours, but not before a lot of people found out about it. Reddit threads blew up, conspiracy films went viral, and all of a sudden a new age of country. What did Jessi do? Asked friends. Colter know about Whitney Jennings that she hadn't told anyone? Jessi, on the other hand, didn't say anything. That changed in 2012. During a rare Texas public Q&A. A young and brave person in the crowd asked her straight out, "Did one ever record a tune about Tucson?" The room was silent. Jessi looked down and put her hands together. Her lap, and then she said, almost too soft enough to hear. He wrote down many things he didn't want anyone to know about it. Said nothing else, but the damage was done. People are interested again. Reporters started knocking again. Were interviewed. Producers looked through old records, but the song, if it there, but it was nowhere to be found. That's when Jessi did something that no one else did. As planned. She called a Nashville historian who is known for finding lost tapes from the time of the Outlaws. He gave him a sealed package and told him, "Release. Do this after I'm gone, not before." There was a USB drive, a letter, and a story. The things inside have never been made. The public, but the scholar confirmed that it being real. And when asked what was on, he just said, "It's not a love letter. Story. Be careful." Whatever Juan lied in that forgotten song, and what Jessi has been carrying in silence for all these years, is now hidden again. We wait because some facts don't die with the people who live them. Some people only wait for the right sound, the right time and voice to finally be heard. When Colter was in her 80s, seeing her had become rare. Even less often, she did interviews. Emerge, it was never done for no reason. 2022, she went to a small private party. There will be a show in Nashville to honor a history of crime. Jessi hadn't been going to perform, but halfway through in the evening, she asked quietly to take the stage. She played the piano by herself, the light shined on her worn-out face, and the room was still for a moment. She began with a well-known gospel, "Storms Never Last" is the tune she sang. Had recorded with Juan before, but she changed the words. At first, a word here, a line there, and then a brand new song that no one had heard. "You told the preacher we'd do it before. I'll never go back, but I can still hear the shovel. The ground turning black." The room stopped moving. Songwriters in the crowd leaned in, moving forward. The producers looked at each other. Without a doubt, a nod to the notion that once unreleased song, The Grave is a secret in Tucson, that no one in the song was over for Jessi and nothing was said, and they left. Before anyone else through the back door, you could ask her what it meant. The show never aired. Phones had been "you can't do it," but word spread quickly, and in the days that followed, business insiders began to look over old logs again, even once test tapes were thrown away. Words. One sheet came up with a line wrote in the margins. She had the lie was that they had the key but not the plan. Laid to rest where prayers meet. The mystery started up again. Meanwhile, Jessi did something strange. She reached out to an old friend of Juan's who is known in the group for trading in old things, recorders and items related to criminals. She gave him a worn-out leather bag. She didn't say what was inside the bag. I looked him in the eye and told him, "Make sure it goes to the right ears when I'm gone." When asked soon after, talk about whether there were things that she and Juan didn't say, Jessi gave a sad smile and said, not said, just not heard." By now, the thoughts were moving on their own. What had really occurred? And who was the man in Tucson? Why was there an unidentified picture? A grave and a church where records are kept secret? What did Juan ask Jessi to burn? What did she refuse to do? As her health got worse, fans to understand that Jessi wasn't just the last link to Juan. Living person who knew the whole story. It gets worse the more you look. Like the songs, the quiets, and all of the buried lines were parts of a too heavy for one voice to bear, lift, but she kept singing because that was the only way she knew to tell the whole truth. The last truth didn't show up. In an exciting turn of events, a press, it could be a meeting or a best-selling book, arrived in the form of a quietly sent an acoustic album. No advertising, no company, just put it on a little-known streaming service page with the real name Jessi Colter on it. The record was called Miriam Johnson Floorboards. There are no songs or liner notes. Only 10 songs, and one of them is track 7, it was just called Tucson. The people who found it were shocked. There was quiet. The song was honest. A voice that was older and filled with sadness sang not of love or broken hearts, but of secrets and a heavy load. The words painted a picture of a church in the desert, a midnight, a confession, and a man digging through dry earth while a woman prayed under lights that flash. One line in particular stopped people in their tracks. Said the drink was empty, but the act was done.